Today I wanted to share something just a little bit different than we normally do. The story of this motorcycle is kind of interesting, kind of funny in fact, and I thought I'd recap it. We're at the end of the 2015 year. I've had 9 months with this motorcycle, and what has turned out to be quite an interesting adventure. I've learned a lot from it, and I thought I'd just recap the story because I think it's an interesting story. It certainly has been a lot of fun for me. I've got 6,000 miles on it in 9 months, so I must have been enjoying it somewhat. And the story starts with this motorcycle. Now this is exactly the same motorcycle here. Same year, same model, everything. The only problem is I have no title for that bike. That's strictly a track bike. So what I did, I had asked Luciano to search me for a bike, any condition, that had a clean title. And it took us about 2 months. We found 2 of them. We found one in Albany. The guy wanted a fortune for it. He wanted $1,100. Nobody's going to pay $1,100 for a motorcycle, that's for sure. Then we wound up getting this one for about a third of that amount. Well, there was a lot of negotiating because one thing, the motorcycle was in a dumpster, in one of these things, these containers that, I don't know how to explain it. They had a leaky roof, and the roof was pouring right down on it. And I mean, it was disgusting. And it snowed the day we picked it up. And the guy gave us an address that didn't exist. So we had to be in the ghetto, worst section of Patterson. And I mean, I know, because I come from the ghetto. This was kind of scary. But we finally linked up with the guy, and we picked up the bike. It took 4 of us to get it into Luciano's truck. We took it up to his house, put a fresh battery in it, hit the starter button, put some gas in it, and I think the motor turned over twice, and it was running, and it was idling. And for a cold day, that just blew me away. I said, how can that be? This kid had ridden it in probably in 2 or 3 years. Registration was all expired, everything. The battery he had looked like it was on Noah's Ark. But what happened, and this is just part of the story of this motorcycle. Once I started restoring it, and I took it down to the frame, polished the swing and arm, put all that, and all that stuff is out on that Windy YouTube. And just to name a few of the things, John Pothier made me these really nice decals. He actually did all the decals on the bike. He actually does all the decals for me, including the pictures for my historic plates, and among other things, he's been my editor when I used to write for the magazine, for both magazines in fact. So here's the way this played out. I had assembled this bike with the help of Luciano, Glenn, several other people that had come over and shared the adventure, my son-in-law for one. And we really, it just took on a life of its own. A friend of mine, Kent Tyser, had gotten one of these green Camaros and put a 1,000 horsepower engine in it and had sent me videos of it. And I said, wow, I love that color. And that has become, well, Luciano's H1 is kind of that color too, similar color. But we got into it. I polished up a lot of the parts. My good friend Chris got me the mirrors. We had some pretty crappy mirrors on it. I had an extra windshield. The original windshield, I had problems with that. There were a lot of little things that, because the bike has these headlights that are down low, as you're coming at it down the highway, and those lights are really bright, you really do, it gives a very unusual presentation compared to a modern bike. Luciano, just today, I ordered more of these gold bolts that hold the windshield on, and other little, I'm going to get some more of them too. They were $4 for 8, now they're $3 for 8. I don't know, maybe the price is coming down. I wanted to replace some of the other bolts with them. I think they look kind of nice. Again, 6,000 miles in 9 months. Joe Roselli's ridden the bike, Luciano's ridden it. I don't think Glenn has ridden it yet. And boy, if Tim hadn't moved out to California, Tim, this bike would have suited you, believe me. Also, our friend Tim from up in Perry's has that beautifully restored Norton Commando, and I kept looking at his exhaust pipes one day, and I'm looking at the exhaust pipes, and all of a sudden one day I said, hey, that might look cool on this bike. And that's an $80 exhaust from Dime Cycle. I did all this, I made this piece back here because I wanted to have like a little bit different look in the back. Of course, we have historic plates right off the get-go. It was 25 years old. This guy, in a week, becomes historic legal. We got the application for that going on. Among other things that have just surprised the hell out of me, it's a 26-year-old motorcycle. It does not burn one drop of oil. When I did I had the oil change twice already, and it was right where it was, and we ride it hard. Anybody that's ridden with me knows I don't baby this bike. In fact, next year I think we're going to take it to some track days, if it's appropriate. I never know about these track day things. You know, they sometimes I lose interest in it, and I just want to work on bikes, and I just want to paint and polish and whatever. And then I go to the track one day, and I want to be Valentino Rossi, and of course that never works. But anyway, one of the things I like about this bike, surprisingly enough, for the people that have ridden it, it is, and Vlad, by the way, has sat on it in my garage, and he said something that impressed me. He said it feels lighter than an RD. And it isn't lighter, but it feels lighter because, number one, it's a very narrow bike. It's super narrow where you sit on it. And the other thing is it's relatively light up top. And it has, my friend Doran Morisano made me these beautifully machined risers. And what I have spacers in there so I can raise or lower them in 1/4-inch increments. I have them about in the middle right now. A lot of the little things, we added a clock to it because I always have to be home. Mama makes sure I don't get out escaping overnight or anything, but anyway, the bike has air suspension in the back, and that really has worked out nice. I've settled on about 15 psi. I had it up to 20, had it down below 10. Right around 15, it's about right. The tires, and this is really funny too. I have two different sets of wheels. There's our other set of wheels up there. We have a set of silver wheels, and as soon as I refinish this wheel, we'll have a black wheel. I wanted to add a white pinstripe here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make this type of stripe on the wheel. I thought that'd really look cool. So what happened is I had painted the wheels, and that's on the video too, and I'd put the green part in there because I thought I'd put the white around the edge. I haven't got a chance to do that yet, but there's plenty of winter days coming up. I did with my custom embroidery. All of these bikes have some embroidery, just I don't know why. I'm not sure why I do a lot of things, but at the end of it, it keeps me young to a certain degree. I'm not totally dependent on the welfare state yet. So, but anyway, the new windshield, I like the look a lot better. It has the green painted about 2 inches lower. I just wanted to have something a little bit different. The other day I polished up all the fairing parts while I had it apart. Tim up at Perry said something I thought was interesting too, and Tim is really a master. That Commando, believe me, if you have a Commando that starts on the first kick, you know what you're doing. Or you have paid a lot of money to somebody. But anyway, he said he looked at the bike, he really, gave me some good feedback on it. And he said, one thing, he says, I looked at the bike 6 times, I never noticed it had gold forks. Well, it's just painted. So what I'm saying is it's not. Now, there's a set of real gold forks on the R1, but I kind of like it. I kind of think it's, well, what happens when you don't have a lot of money tied up in a bike, you really can be aggressive about riding it. Now, this bike I have a lot of money tied up in, and I guess I'm a coward or something. Bob Navola says I don't ride fast enough. And the RD, I baby this RD, believe me, this bike only gets 1 wheelie per gear change here. This has been just, this restoration really was worth every minute I spent for one reason. It has made me feel young again. This bike, I'm not sure what it makes me feel, but I love to just hold the throttle wide open and watch the wheel come up and whatever. I don't know what it does. This bike I've had since it was new, and as the year ends here, as 2015 ends, I realize among these 8 bikes, I've had some great memories. I've worn out a lot of tires. I've learned a lot from Luciano about fixing motorcycles, and Glenn and Vince and everybody seems to be sharing information, which I think is just a priceless thing. Our friend Aaron has the twin to this bike, and I don't know if he just bought my exercise equipment, so now that he's going to be in great shape, maybe we can put him to work someday. But it's a long, interesting story, and the job, we still got your parts hanging up here, baby. And the rental, the clock is running. Just kidding here anyway. But anyway, I thought I'd share this. This was another seat I had done. But, what happened, it all started with this bike. And it started out being a very small, I don't even know, a project that I didn't think would take on legs of its own. But like a lot of things that I've done, including renovating the house for Karen, that was a 25-year project that probably isn't done yet. If you ask her, it isn't done. But anyway, and it has just started out to be 9 months of this. 9 months of bolts. And by the way, Chris, I still have this is for Chris's seat. I bought her some special bolts. And I love these gold bolts. I'm going to ask, I'm going to go order some more. Luciano, thanks for finding them. John Pothia, thanks for working on all these decals and bailing me out when I ran out of decal technology, and of course the mandatory cup of coffee. But what I found for my life, and I'm 70 years old, that if I don't have a shelf with a project on it or something to keep me, by the way, I know Ray has seen this. This is his brother's helmet that I refinished to match the bike just for fun. And that used to belong to Frank Straub. And I'll never wear it. It's just a little, I keep it in my shop. It's a little tribute to him. But I thought today, because it's a rainy day and Vlad's paint is drying, Luciano's paint is drying, I got this puppy put back together today. I really felt like I accomplished something today. But this bike has a long story. I'm certainly not over, I hope. And we may get a couple more rides this year, I'm not sure. It's certainly not a big deal if we don't. But Christmas is coming up in a couple of days. I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And my feeling is, if you, like me, are getting old, this is what you need to stay young. I think this is the fountain of youth right here, is to just have some project to work on, have a table full of tools, a hot cup of coffee, a bunch of friends that are willing to come over and share the great adventure. And it is a great adventure that we all share. And several people have told me this. Now, I didn't set out to do this, but it worked out this way. They have told me, thank you for sharing all the stuff on YouTube. Well, for anybody who doesn't know, there are about 300 Windy videos for how to build model planes. Those are a separate entity from my normal website. There's, I think, a few, I don't know how many, there's train and model train videos on another site. And the motorcycle site is Windy Space U, and I look at it sometimes on my big screen TV, and if you have never seen YouTube on a big screen TV, you're missing. I hope Glenn is watching some of this stuff, especially the ones where he's the star of. But again, I just wanted to mumble here for a while. I'm not going to see anybody today, and Karen has some work for me to do, so I wanted to snap this puppy together on its rainy day. If you look outside, this is not, I didn't miss the best riding day of the year, but anyway, all these bikes, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they add to my life, but I know they add something. But the biggest thing is the friends we've made in doing this, and I cherish every one of your friendships. And believe me, I'm looking at Christmas coming up, and I'm thinking, why didn't you just buy me a motorcycle, Santa Claus? Santa Claus gave me a candy cane the other night. Come on. I hope you enjoyed sharing this little rant with Windy.